Hi, MP Mark Warwa with another MP Minute. And this is a very somber meeting that I'm having with Markita Kaulius and the work that she has done with Families for Justice. Tragically, her daughter Cassandra was killed in 2011 by a drunk driver. And since that time, her family has worked tirelessly with others, tragically other Canadians that have also lost loved ones, to see the laws in Canada change. And also, Markita has, along with other members of Families for Justice, have introduced and provided to us to take to Ottawa to introduce into Parliament, I think, over 100,000 signatures saying we want to change in the laws of Canada. Presently, the laws in Canada, the mandatory minimum for killing somebody while impaired is $1,000, and that's unbelievably low. And so, through your work, we've introduced two bills. One to honor your daughter, and it's called Cassandra's Law, and that's to change the law so that if you kill somebody while impaired, the charge would then no longer be impaired driving causing death, but it would be vehicular homicide, and the appropriate sentencing with that. But then you've also tirelessly encouraged the government to introduce legislation, which they did just recently, and that is the Dangerous and Impaired Driving Act. Could you tell us about that act and what you like about it?
Well, what we like about that is the fact that this is now would be proposed legislation, hopefully to be enacted, that will hold people accountable for their actions and for the crimes that they commit. And impaired driving causing death truly is a vehicular homicide, and we feel that this is a charge that is an appropriate charge, and families need to feel that their loved ones are being represented, in the courts, and that hasn't been the case for many of us, and we're very pleased with this legislation.
Markita, the legislation asks for a mandatory minimum of 6 years. Now, I believe you were asking for 5 years mandatory minimum. The government has introduced at least 6 years. If you're ever convicted of vehicular homicide, mandatory sentence of at least 6 years. Do you think that is, you can never replace a life, but do you think that's on the right track?
It's a really good start. It really is. Families, we're sentenced to a lifetime of being without our loved ones and our children. And a 6-year minimum mandatory sentence is at least holding someone accountable for taking the life of an innocent person. And we feel that that's a great starting point. And we go along, and as if more laws are needed to become a better justice system, that's what we work towards. As a society, we all need to be responsible about impaired driving, and we also need to hold people accountable. If they choose to put the public at risk, commit these crimes, and kill someone, then they need to be held accountable for their actions.
Markita, you've met with the Minister of Justice, and Peter MacKay, I think when you were in Ottawa with other members of Families for Justice, and you met with him, and the Prime Minister also has been very involved with this whole process, and the Government of Canada is very supportive of what you've asked and has introduced this legislation. Now, this 40th Parliament is ended, and we have an election in a couple of months. How important is it that the next Parliament of Canada, the 42nd Parliament, how important is it that they quickly introduce legislation and get this passed?
It's so important. One of the things that we have liked about the Conservative government is the fact that they have promised one of their mandates to get tough on crime, and we truly feel, in working with yourself and Justice Minister Peter MacKay, that you have listened to us, the public, and you have taken our concerns to heart. You are working to create a better justice system, and putting this in place will help do that.
Markita, this is a nonpartisan issue, though. Canadians are dying and being seriously injured. And because of a bad choice of driving while you're impaired, there's no excuse to do this. There's taxis and buses and designated drivers. There's no excuse to do this. So you're asking for those that do choose to make this horrible decision. And could you speak to those that are running to be part of the next Parliament? How important is it to pass this quickly in the next Parliament?
It is very important. We are losing over 1,000 to 1,600 people per year. Impaired driving is the #1 criminal cause of death in Canada, and thousands of families are losing their loved ones. And this is a legislation law that needs to be passed immediately. The sooner the better. We need to start protecting Canadians and saving families from living with the devastation that they will be faced in the future if they lose a loved one to an impaired driver.
Markita, thank you for your bravery, for your family committing, along with other families for justice, to change the laws in Canada, to make Canada safer. And I know you will not give up until this is done. So God bless you for your great efforts, and we thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Mark, for all of your hard work, and for Conservative Party for taking the time to listen to us, the people, and work towards making a better country.
Thank you.